Everything begins with a thought, and the right thought can change everything. Every invention, every revolution, every major breakthrough started in the quiet corners of someone's mind. A single idea, a whisper of belief, a flicker of maybe I can. You see, thoughts are more than passing moments. They are the blueprint of our future, the architects of our reality. And when you truly believe in a thought, when you give it attention, energy, and faith, it begins to move mountains. But here's the challenge. Most people never realize just how powerful their thoughts are. They treat them casually, carelessly, like background noise. They feed themselves doubt, fear, and limitation, and then wonder why their lives don't change. But if a single thought can destroy confidence, imagine what a single, powerful, uplifting thought can build. That's what this message is about. This isn't a theory. This is about how one shift in thinking, one decision to believe, to act, to take ownership, can alter your entire path. This is about finding that thought, the one that wakes you up, that lifts you higher, that changes your life from the inside out. Because your circumstances don't change first. Your thinking does. And when it does, everything else starts to follow. Today I'm going to share with you how powerful your thoughts truly are, and how one single thought can change everything. Stay with me for the next few minutes as I walk you through the thought that rewrites your future. Let's dive in. Number 1. Thoughts are the architects of reality. Take a moment and look around you. Everything you see that's man-made once existed only in someone's mind. The chair you're sitting on, the phone in your hand, even the house you live in, every one of them was born as a thought, a vision, an idea. Before it was real, it was imagined. And that's the first truth we need to grasp. Your thoughts are the architects of your reality. They design the world you step into each day. What you think, you begin to believe. What you believe, you begin to act on. And what you act on becomes your life. Think about it. The Golden Gate Bridge didn't appear out of nowhere. It started with an engineer's idea, something that lived in his imagination long before it touched the sky. And Walt Disney, he imagined entire worlds before they ever existed. He once said, "It's kind of fun to do the impossible, but it only became possible because he thought it first." That's how reality is shaped. Not by chance, not by luck, but by thought. Now here's the part that gets overlooked. You are doing this every day, whether you realize it or not. You're constantly building with every thought you allow in. With every belief you reinforce, you're laying bricks. Question is, what kind of world are you building? If your thoughts are with doubt, your reality will reflect limitation. If your thoughts are full of fear, you'll step into a life that feels small and uncertain. But if your thoughts begin to stretch, to imagine more, to believe that better is possible, your world begins to open. This isn't magic. It's the mindset. Your mind is your blueprint, and every day you're the architect. So choose your thoughts like a builder chooses materials. Be intentional. Be thoughtful. Because your future depends on it. Before any real change can happen in your life, it has to begin in your mind. That's where it all starts. That's the ground you build on. So today, start there. Don't wait for your circumstances to improve. Improve your thoughts first. And just like an architect sketches the structure before the foundation is ever poured, you sketch your life through the pictures you hold in your mind. Design wisely. Number 2. You become what you think about most. There's a powerful truth that shapes every life. You move in the direction of your dominant thoughts. Not the ones you think once in a while, but the ones you think about every single day. The ones that circle in your mind when you wake up, when you're walking alone, when no one's watching. Those thoughts are steering the wheel. It's not just what's on your mind that matters, it's what stays on your mind. And here's the reality most people miss. You don't become what you wish for. You become what you think about most. Your life begins to mirror the images you consistently hold in your imagination, good or bad. Let me give you a real example. Serena Williams didn't become a champion by accident. Before she ever stepped onto center court, she had already won in her mind. She practiced not just with her body, but with her thoughts. She saw herself lifting trophies, fighting through tough matches, and winning under pressure. And because she kept thinking like a champion, she began to move, train, and perform like one. That's the pattern. What you focus on becomes your reality. If you keep thinking about how tired you are, how unfair life is, how things never go your way, your mind will go to work proving you right. It'll begin to highlight every flaw, every obstacle, every moment that supports that belief. But if you flip the script even a little, your focus starts to shift. Your energy starts to change. Your actions begin to follow a new direction. Let's say you start your day thinking, today's a day of progress. I'm moving forward. You may not feel it instantly, but your brain is now looking for alignment. Your eyes open wider to opportunity. Your posture improves. You make one better decision than another. Before long, you've moved yourself an inch further, and that inch matters. You see, your thoughts are like seeds, and your attention is the water. Whatever you water grows. The more you water thoughts of growth, courage, hope, and discipline, the more of that you'll see in your life. But if you're constantly watering worry, fear, and self-doubt, you can't expect to harvest peace. This is why it's so important to protect your inner conversation. What are you telling yourself over and over? Because that internal dialogue, that quiet, constant narrative, is the very thing shaping your habits, your confidence, and your future. Let me put it this way. If you're always thinking, I'm not good enough, then every situation you walk into, you're already playing small. You hesitate, you shrink, you second guess yourself. Why? Because your thoughts told you to. But if you start planting the thought, capable of learning anything I commit to, or I have what it takes to grow, then something inside begins to rise. Your behavior slowly adjusts to match your belief. That's the secret. You train your mind to see possibilities, and it will show them to you. You don't need to think 1,000 different thoughts. You just need to choose the right ones, and think about them often enough that they take root. That's how belief is built. Not in a single moment of motivation, but through repetition. Repetition rewires your mind. It's not the flash of inspiration that changes you. It's the consistent, focused, intentional thought that you hold on to, even when nothing around you has changed yet. So today, take inventory. What thoughts are you rehearsing? What story are you telling yourself about who you are and what you can become? Because the truth is this, you are the result of what you've been thinking, and your future will reflect what you continue to think from this point forward. So make it count. Number 3, the energy of emotion-fueled thinking. Thoughts on their own have power, but thoughts mixed with emotion, that's where the real magic begins. Emotion is the energy that gives your thoughts momentum. It's the difference between whispering a dream and declaring it with conviction. It's what takes a casual idea and turns it into a life mission. You see, your mind responds to emotion. The stronger the feeling tied to a thought, the deeper it gets planted, and the more influence it has over your decisions. That's why emotional memories stay with us longer. We remember not just what happened, but how it made us feel. The same is true for our beliefs. If a thought is charged with emotion, it has staying power. It becomes the kind of thought that doesn't just sit in your mind. It drives your actions. Take Oprah Winfrey as an example. She didn't grow up with privilege or ease. She faced unimaginable hardship, poverty, abuse, rejection. But somewhere inside her, an emotionally charged thought took root. That thought said, my life will not end the way it began. It wasn't just a hopeful idea. It was a fire. And that fire kept her moving, learning, climbing, and believing, long before the world believed in her. The intensity of her emotion made her thoughts unshakable. Now, here's where many people get stuck. They have the thought, I want to change my life, but the emotion behind it is weak. There's no real energy pushing it forward. It's a nice idea, but it doesn't light them up. Without emotion, a thought is just a whisper in the wind. It comes and goes. But with emotion, it becomes a declaration. It becomes something your mind and your body begins to obey. Emotion gives your thoughts urgency. It turns a wish into a must. It's the difference between I should work on my health and I will not live another year in this pain. The second one hits differently, doesn't it? Because it's not coming from the surface, it's coming from deep within. That's the thought that makes you get up earlier. That's the thought that pushes you through the discomfort, that gets you to say no to the old habits, and yes to a better standard. And let's not forget, emotion isn't always loud. It doesn't always look like fire and shouting. Sometimes it's quiet but firm, a silent, steady resolve. Like the moment someone decides they're done settling. Like the single parent who, after years of holding it all together, finally thinks, my kids deserve better, and so do I. That's a thought loaded with emotion, and it changes everything. You don't need to wait for tragedy or crisis to feel that intensity. You can create it on purpose. You can tap into your values, what truly matters to you. You can remind yourself what's at stake. You can visualize the life you want so vividly that your body feels it. That's how you bring emotion into your thoughts. You see it, you feel it, you believe it. And once you believe it emotionally, your actions start to line up automatically. Think about the strongest commitments you've ever made. Were they based on logic alone? Probably not. They were backed by feeling. Love, pain, desire, passion, those are the engines. And when those emotions align with your thoughts, you become a different kind of person. Focused, relentless, purposeful. So if you've had thoughts like, I should start a business or I need to get in shape, but you haven't moved, don't just repeat the thought. Go deeper. Add emotion. Ask yourself why it matters. What will it cost you if you don't change? What will it give you if you do? Get emotional about your vision. Not dramatic, not desperate, just deeply connected. Because once your thoughts are fueled with real feeling, they become unstoppable. And the truth is that kind of thinking, that emotional, locked in, nothing's stopping me kind of thinking, is what separates intention from transformation. So if you want your thoughts to move mountains, you've got to feel them in your bones. Number 4, change your thoughts, change your direction. There comes a time in every person's life when they realize that the path they're on doesn't lead where they want to go. It might be a quiet realization or a sharp wake-up call, but it always starts the same way, with a single thought. A thought that says, this isn't it. There's more for me. And from that moment, everything can begin to shift. See, your life doesn't change by accident. It doesn't improve just because you hope it will or because time passes. Your life changes when you change. And the very first thing that changes is your thinking. That's the steering wheel. That's the compass. Your thoughts determine the direction of your life. And if you want a new destination, you need a new direction. And to get a new direction, you must start thinking in a new way. Let me give you a real-world example. Think of Howard Schultz, the man who transformed Starbucks from a small coffee shop into a global brand. Now, this wasn't just a business decision. It was a shift in thinking. Schultz didn't just think about selling coffee. He thought about creating a third place, a space between work and home, where people could feel a sense of connection and comfort. That thought, that vision gave birth to a new kind of coffee culture, a new experience. And that's the power of changing your thoughts. It changes what you aim for, how you operate, and what results you create. Now, you don't need to build a billion-dollar business to apply this principle. You just need to stop and ask yourself, where is my current thinking taking me? If I keep thinking this way about my job, my health, my relationships, where will I end up? And is that where I really want to be? Because the truth is, you are always moving in the direction your thoughts are pointing. If your thoughts are small, you'll play small. If your thoughts are fearful, you'll avoid risks. If your thoughts are full of excuses, your actions will always come up short. But if your thoughts begin to expand, if they begin to challenge, if they begin to dream, your life will slowly follow that new path. It's not about changing everything overnight. It's about course correcting. It's about adjusting your inner compass. Sometimes just a 2-degree shift in your thinking leads you to an entirely new destination. You might be right now, not because of your circumstances, but because of your perspective. You're looking at life through the same lens you've always used, expecting different results. But what if you dared to think differently? What if you began to entertain a higher standard? What if you replace "this is just how I am" with "this is who I'm becoming"? That simple change in thought opens doors. It allows new ideas, new habits, new opportunities to show up. You start looking for answers instead of problems. You start seeing potential instead of limitation. You start feeling hopeful instead of helpless. That's what happens when you take control of your direction. By taking control of your thoughts. And here's something to remember. You don't need anyone's permission to change your thinking. You don't need a green light or a second opinion. You can choose right now to see yourself differently, to see your situation differently, to imagine something better, and to believe it's possible for you. That's not delusion. That's growth. That's leadership. That's power. You don't have to stay stuck in the same loop. You don't have to keep repeating the same cycles. One thought, just one, can set you on a different road. A road with new people, new challenges, new rewards. A road that stretches you, grows you, and fulfills you. So if your current path doesn't feel right, don't wait for someone to come fix it. Don't wait for perfect timing. Change your mind first. Start there. Because once your thoughts start heading in a new direction, your feet will follow. And before you know it, you'll look back and realize you're not who you used to be. And thank goodness for that. Number 5, the thought that opens the door. Sometimes all it takes is one thought to break through everything that's been holding you back. One single idea can swing the door wide open on a new life. It doesn't have to be big or loud, it just has to be true. And when it lands, you feel it, deep in your gut, in your chest, in your bones. You know in that moment things will never be the same again. Not because the world changed, but because you did. That's the thought that opens the door. For some people it sounds like "I've had enough." For others, it's "I deserve more." Or maybe, "There's something greater in me and I'm tired of hiding it." It's not a fantasy, it's a decision. A switch flips inside. You go from accepting to acting, from coping to creating, from waiting to moving. That thought becomes your turning point. Take J.K. Rowling, for instance. She was a single mother, unemployed, and struggling with depression. By most standards, life had closed every door. She was rejected over and over by publishers who told her no one would read a book about a boy wizard. But she had a thought that opened the door. It said, "This story matters. I have to finish it." That one thought led her to keep writing, to keep trying, to believe in something when no one else did. And that persistence, powered by belief, turned rejection into one of the most successful book series in history. It all began with one thought. And here's the thing. You don't need the whole plan to take the first step. You just need the right thought. A thought that breathes life into you. A thought that says, "I'm not stuck, I'm starting." That single shift in mindset can take you from hopelessness to hunger, from fear to focus. And once you're focused, once your eyes open to what's possible, it's amazing how quickly things begin to move. But let's be honest. Some doors won't open because we haven't decided to knock. We think about change. We talk about change. We daydream about change. But we don't take that next step. And the reason is simple. We haven't had the thought that pushes us over the edge. The one that makes staying the same more painful than taking a risk. That's the thought that changes everything. It creates momentum. And momentum creates motion. When you find that thought, protect it. Write it down. Speak it out loud. Revisit it daily. Because the world is loud, and it will try to drown it out. The doubts will creep in. The fears will whisper. And the old identity will try to pull you back. But that thought, the right thought, will keep the door open long enough for you to walk through it. It might be a thought like, "I'm capable," even if you've doubted yourself for years. Or, "I'm not my past," even if you've carried mistakes like chains. Maybe it's, "I don't have to do this alone," when you've spent too long trying to hold everything together. Whatever it is, that one new thought can change the lens you see life through. And that lens changes everything. What people call breakthrough moments are really just breakthrough thoughts. That's where transformation begins. It starts in your mind, and then it flows into your words, your choices, your habits, and eventually your results. So the question becomes, what thought do you need right now to open your next door? What belief have you been too afraid to entertain? What truth have you been resisting? The thought that changes your story may not sound dramatic. It may not come with fanfare, but it will be honest. And it will feel like a key fitting perfectly into a locked door you've been staring at for years. And once it turns, nothing will ever be the same. Number 6, guard the gates of the mind. Your mind is like a garden, and every day thoughts, both good and bad, are trying to take root. Some are seeds of strength, confidence, and vision. Others are weeds of doubt, fear, and distraction. What grows in your mind depends entirely on what you allow in, what you water, and what you pull out. That's why it's not just important to think the right thoughts. It's just as important to protect your mind from the wrong ones. You've got to guard the gates. Because if you're not intentional about what enters your mind, you'll find yourself carrying beliefs and emotions that don't even belong to you. You'll be weighed down by opinions, fears, and limitations you never asked for. This is one of the most overlooked truths in personal growth. People wonder why they're anxious, unmotivated, or always doubting themselves. But they've left the gates wide open. They've allowed negativity to walk in unchecked, through the news, through conversations, through social media, through their own unfiltered self-talk. And slowly, that negativity begins to shape the way they see the world, and more importantly, how they see themselves. Think of it like this. If you were planting a garden to feed your family, would you let just anyone walk through and throw trash into the soil? Of course not. You'd protect it. You'd build a fence. You'd pull the weeds. You'd make sure only the right things were planted and nurtured. Your mind deserves the same care. Let me share an example from the world of high-stakes mental toughness. Navy SEALs are known not just for their physical endurance, but for their mental discipline. One former SEAL shared how, during the most grueling parts of training, what kept him going wasn't muscle. It was control over his inner dialogue. He had learned to shut out the noise of doubt and focus only on thoughts that served his mission. Even when his body screamed to quit, his mind stayed locked in. That's the kind of mental discipline that can only come from guarding your mind like your life depends on it. Because in his case, it literally did. Now, you may not be in combat, but the battles we face in life are often fought in the mind first. The battle to stay confident, the battle to keep going, the battle to believe in yourself again after failure. And you can't win those battles if you're constantly letting negativity, fear, and noise pour in unchecked. Guarding your mind doesn't mean living in denial. It means being selective about what you accept as truth. It means learning to question those automatic thoughts that tell you I can't, or I'm not enough, or this is too hard. It means replacing them with thoughts that empower you, like I'm learning, or I've overcome worse, or I still have time. It also means paying attention to who and what you're listening to. Some people only know how to see problems, not possibilities. If you let their voice become louder than your own, you'll inherit their limitations. But when you surround yourself with people who speak life, who believe in growth, who challenge you to be better, that's when your mind becomes a place where strong thoughts can thrive. And don't underestimate the power of repetition. What you hear and see consistently becomes your mental default. That's why daily affirmations work. That's why journaling works. That's why stepping away from toxic influences matters. You're not just surviving the day, you're shaping your mindset for tomorrow. So ask yourself, what kind of thoughts am I letting through the gate? What am I watching, reading, repeating, believing? Are those thoughts building me up or breaking me down? Because here's the truth. You can't control everything that comes your way, but you can absolutely control what stays. And once you become the guardian of your mind, everything else begins to change. Your peace improves. Your focus sharpens. Your confidence grows. So build the fence, pull the weeds, water the right seeds, guard the gates of your mind, and your thoughts will have the space they need to grow into something extraordinary. Number 7. Discipline begins in the mind. Before you ever rise early, before you hit the gym, before you say no to that distraction or yes to that opportunity, something happens first. A thought, a decision. That's where all discipline begins. Not in the body, not in the calendar, not in the routine, but in the mind. Discipline is not just about willpower. It's about mental conditioning. It's the ability to hold a thought long enough and strong enough that it turns into consistent action. And once you understand that, discipline stops being this mysterious quality that some people are born with and others aren't. You realize it's something you can train, build, and strengthen, just like a muscle. Now, most people wait to feel disciplined. They wait until they're motivated. But the truth is, discipline comes before the motivation shows up. It starts with a thought like, I do hard things, or I finish what I start, or even this is who I am now. That thought, if repeated and backed with emotion, starts to shape your identity, and identity is where discipline becomes automatic. Let me give you a real-world example. David Goggins, a man who went from being overweight, working a dead-end job, and living in self-doubt, to becoming a Navy SEAL and one of the toughest endurance athletes on the planet. What changed? His mind. He looked in the mirror one day and said, I'm soft, I'm full of excuses, and I'm done. That was the thought that started everything. He didn't wait for a pep talk or a motivational video. He made a mental decision to become someone new, and then backed it up with relentless action. But here's the key. That action started with a thought. It wasn't about having superhuman grit. It was about getting clear on what he wanted and deciding that nothing else would do. That kind of clarity creates discipline. So many people are trying to force discipline from the outside. They build schedules, set alarms, make plans, and that's good. But it won't last if the internal thought hasn't changed. If you're still thinking, I'm not consistent, or I always quit, then your actions will eventually circle back to match that belief. That's why people start strong and fade out. They're trying to act against the grain of their own self-image. To build lasting discipline, you have to start feeding your mind different messages. You have to install thoughts that align with the person you want to become. Thoughts like, I honor my commitments, or I do the work, even when it's inconvenient. These aren't just affirmations, they're anchors. They hold you steady when your feelings try to pull you in another direction. And here's the truth. Discipline is rarely convenient. It's often uncomfortable, but that discomfort is what separates average from excellent. It's what builds resilience, sharpens focus, and earns respect, not just from others, but from yourself. Every time you follow through on what you said you'd do, your confidence grows. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, your identity gets stronger. And it's okay if you slip. Everyone does. Discipline isn't about being perfect. It's about being willing to begin again, to catch yourself sooner, to make the comeback faster than the setback. And that also begins in the mind, with the thought that says, I'm not finished. I'm still in this. Start by choosing one area of your life that needs more discipline. Maybe it's your health, your finances, your work ethic, or your attitude. Then begin feeding your mind thoughts that support change in that area. Write them down, say them out loud, repeat them until they become second nature. And most importantly, act on them. Because a disciplined thought without action is like a seed never planted. So remember, discipline isn't reserved for the elite. It's not about being special. It's about choosing the thought that leads to growth and choosing it over and over again, especially when it's hard. You don't build discipline overnight, but you can build it every day. One thought, one decision, one action at a time. And soon enough, you'll look back and realize you didn't just change your habits, you changed your life. Number 8, build thought habits that serve you. If your life is the house, then your thoughts are the bricks. And the truth is, you've been building every day whether you knew it or not. But here's what most people never realize. Your thoughts don't just pop in randomly. They form patterns. And those patterns become habits. And just like any habit, they can work for you or against you. Most people pay close attention to their physical habits. They track their diet, their workouts, their spending, but few people ever take the time to examine their thinking habits. What do you think about when you first wake up? What plays on repeat in your mind when something doesn't go your way? What thoughts do you fall asleep to? Those aren't random. They're well-worn paths your mind has been walking for years. The question is, Do those thought habits serve you or sabotage you? Let me give you an example that might surprise you. There was a woman, a single mom, who started a small baking business out of her kitchen. At first, it was just about getting by. But every morning, before she put on her apron, she would pause for just 2 minutes. And in those 2 minutes, she would picture herself succeeding. She saw herself delivering cakes, shaking hands with customers, opening a storefront. She said to herself, "I'm building something that matters." That was her daily thought habit. And over time, her reality started to catch up to that belief. Years later, she owned a successful bakery, employed a team, and spoke at women's business conferences. When asked what made the difference, she didn't say luck or talent. She said, "It started with what I told myself every morning." That's the power of consistent, intentional thinking. A single thought repeated daily becomes a belief. A belief shapes your identity, and your identity drives your behavior. Now let's be real. Not all thought habits are helpful. Some are sneaky. Some sound like, "It's too late for me," or "I never follow through," or even, "I'm just not that type of person." These are mental habits, automatic thought loops that keep you playing small. And unless you interrupt them, they'll keep running the show. So how do you change them? The same way you change any habit, with awareness, intention, and repetition. First, become aware of the thoughts you're thinking most often. Write them down. Catch yourself in the act. Don't judge them. Just recognize them. Then, begin replacing them. If your usual thought is, "I can't handle this," shift it to, "I can figure this out." If your default is, "I'm not good at this," replace it with, "I'm learning every day." It may feel awkward at first. Just like switching from biting your nails to keeping your hands busy, mental habits take time to rewire. But with repetition, your brain starts to lay down new pathways. And soon, your new thought becomes the new normal. You can also reinforce new thought habits with physical actions. Stand taller when you say something empowering. Breathe deeply when you catch yourself slipping into worry. Anchor your new thoughts with movement and presence, and they'll begin to stick faster. And remember this, your brain is always listening. The more you speak life, the more your mind believes it. The more you think in alignment with growth, the more you act in alignment with growth. So feed your mind like you would fuel a high-performance engine. Don't give it junk and expect excellence. Give it clarity. Give it purpose. Give it direction. Building thought habits that serve you doesn't mean you never have a negative thought again. It means that when those thoughts show up, you don't give them the microphone. You don't let them stay. You replace them. You outgrow them. You build stronger ones. You are not your old thoughts. You are not your past mindset. You are what you choose to think consistently moving forward. So choose well. The mind will believe what it hears most. Make sure what it hears is a message that lifts, empowers, and calls you higher. Because the more you build these thought habits, the kind that serve your purpose and your future, the stronger, clearer, and more powerful your life becomes. Number 9. Speak the thought. Shape the world. There's a moment when a thought becomes more than just an idea. It crosses a line. It gets spoken. And when that happens, something powerful begins to take shape. Thoughts are the beginning, but words are the bridge between your internal world and your external reality. What you say, not just to others, but to yourself, sets things in motion. It signals to your mind, to your body, and to the world around you. This is what I believe. This is where I'm going. You've probably heard the phrase, words create worlds. And it's true. Every major movement, every life-changing vision, every revolution started with someone putting their thoughts into words. Words carry energy. They carry identity. They carry belief. And when they're spoken with clarity and conviction, they can inspire action, change direction, and even move nations. Take Martin Luther King Jr., for example. He had a dream, but it wasn't just the thought that made history. It was the speech. The moment he stood and said, "I have a dream," it gave the idea form. It made it real. His words didn't just communicate, they activated. They resonated deep within people's souls. Not because they were fancy, but because they were spoken with belief. Now here's the part most people miss. You don't have to speak to millions for your words to matter. The most important person your words influence is you. When you say, "I can do this," your brain starts looking for evidence to support that. When you say, "I'm not ready," your body follows by hesitating. Words are commands to the subconscious. They give direction. And over time, those directions become patterns, and those patterns become outcomes. That's why being careless with your words is so dangerous. If you keep saying, "I'm always tired," or "I'm terrible at relationships," or "I'll never get ahead," you're not just expressing frustration, you're programming your identity. You're reinforcing the very mindset that keeps you stuck. Your words become the cement around your feet. But if you start saying, "I'm learning how to grow," or "I'm building better habits," or "I'm figuring it out, one step at a time," then your words start unlocking new possibilities. They release pressure and invite progress. You're not pretending life is perfect. You're just choosing to frame it in a way that moves you forward. This is why affirmations are so effective. Not because they're magical, but because they give your thoughts structure. They make your vision audible. And when you hear yourself speak possibility, belief, and purpose, your mind starts to shift. Your focus sharpens, your actions align. You stop waiting to feel confident and start training confidence into existence with your words. So here's the challenge. Start speaking your future out loud. Speak what you want to build. Speak who you're becoming. Speak what matters to you. This isn't about being loud or showy. It's about being intentional. Even if it's just in your car, in your journal, or in your head, let your words echo the life you're working toward. And be mindful of how you speak about others too. Every word you speak shapes not just your world, but someone else's. Complaining, criticizing, and tearing down doesn't just waste energy. It builds a habit of seeing the worst. And what you train yourself to see, you eventually live in. On the flip side, speaking life into others builds a habit of encouragement, belief, and compassion. And that becomes a powerful force, not just for them, but for you. So ask yourself today, what have I been speaking into my life? What words have I been feeding my mind, my goals, my relationships? Are they building something or breaking something? Because once you start speaking with clarity, with purpose, and with belief, your world begins to rise to meet your words. Speak what you seek until you see what you've said. That's how you shape the world. One thought turned into one word, repeated with consistency, backed by belief, and followed by action. Number 10, the thought that changes everything. There's a moment, quiet, personal, and often unexpected, when a single thought cuts through all the noise. A thought that doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't care about your past, your mistakes, or your excuses. It simply shows up and says, "This is it. It's time." That's the thought that changes everything. It's not always dramatic. In fact, it often comes in a whisper. But when it lands, you feel it. It doesn't just pass through your mind. It stops you in your tracks. It hits your heart. And suddenly the way you've been living no longer makes sense. The fear, the hesitation, the waiting, they all lose their grip in the presence of this one crystal clear realization. I don't have to stay the same. This is the turning point. It might come after a season of struggle, or in the middle of a quiet evening. It could show up after heartbreak, disappointment, or failure. Or it might rise up in the most ordinary moment. Folding laundry, sitting in traffic, brushing your teeth. And just like that, a new thought is born. A thought that says, "This isn't the end of my story." There was once a man battling addiction, lost in a cycle of destruction, pain, and regret. He had tried to quit before. He made promises. He apologized. But nothing stuck. Until one morning, alone in a bathroom, he looked in the mirror and thought, "This ends now." That was the thought. Not dramatic, not loud, just firm. That day, he didn't make a plan for the next 5 years. He just made one decision to take the first step in a new direction. That one thought turned into a call, a meeting, a new habit, a new life. It wasn't the size of the decision. It was the finality of the thought behind it. The thought that changes everything doesn't come with guarantees. It doesn't show you the full path, but it gives you enough conviction to take the first step. And that first step leads to the next. That's how lives are transformed. Not by trying to fix everything at once, but by fully owning a single powerful thought. I'm done with who I've been. I'm ready for who I can become. You might be standing at that very edge right now. Maybe life hasn't looked the way you hoped. Maybe you've played small, stayed quiet, waited too long. And maybe you're starting to feel that tug, that growing discomfort with comfort, that gentle pressure to rise. That's not just a feeling, that's your moment. That's your thought coming into focus. The thought that says, there's more in me and I'm not wasting another day. Now let's be honest. It's not that you never knew better. It's that you weren't ready to believe it. But when this thought finally clicks, belief catches fire. Excuses lose their voice. And all that's left is possibility. What makes this thought so powerful isn't that it's new. It's that this time, you believe it. You accept that your past doesn't define you, that your failures don't cancel your future, that your story isn't over, not even close. And in that moment, your future begins to shift. Not because the world changed, but because your mind did. And once the mind changes, everything else has no choice but to follow. So here's the invitation. Stop waiting for the perfect time, the perfect plan, the perfect version of yourself. That version will only show up once you start. Start with the thought. The one that says, I am ready. I am capable. I am worth it. You don't need to fix everything today. You just need to choose that one thought and hold on to it like your life depends on it. Because in a way it does. That's the thought that changes everything. And once you find it, speak it and believe it. Nothing in your life will stay the same. It all begins with a thought. That's the message. Not a miracle, not $1 million, not someone showing up to fix your life for you. Just one thought. One shift, one decision to think differently, on purpose, with conviction. And when that thought is clear, when it's backed by emotion, repeated with belief, and protected from the noise of doubt, it starts a chain reaction. Thoughts shape words. Words shape actions. Actions shape habits. And habits shape your destiny. We've talked about the architects of reality, the emotional fire that gives thought its power, the discipline that starts in the mind, the doors that open when you dare to think higher. But none of it matters unless you decide to own your thinking. Every single day. The good news? You don't need to be perfect. You don't need all the answers. You just need to take back the pen and start rewriting the narrative. Replace the old loops of I can't and I'm stuck with I can grow. And this is just the beginning, because that's exactly what this is. A beginning. You've got the tools. You've got the awareness. Now it's time to choose the thought that lifts you, the thought that stretches you, the thought that changes everything. Speak it, believe it, act on it. Let it pull you toward the person you were always meant to be, because your life is waiting, and it's listening. It's listening for that one clear, powerful thought. And the moment you choose it, your new future begins.